I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. And welcome into Juck on Bucks, the weekend show. Appreciate y'all so much for joining me. I just got back from Uncle Chris's. It is Aunt Kitty's 70th birthday. Happy birthday to our Aunt Kitty. Make sure to tell her so if you see her. I got some pushback last week when I said the rest of the Big Ten hates us. If you could have been a fly on the wall for my conversation with Wisconsin Uncle Mark, my gosh, do they hate us, man. It is deep-seated. Ohio State's been drafting good for decades. The national championship team was purchased. He was quite shocked when I told him Ohio State took less transfers than 105 of 134 teams heading into last year. Also made mention that everybody knew Ohio State was going to win the championship before the season even started. Apparently, he didn't check the AP or the coaches poll, as Ohio State was number 2 heading into the season. So no, not everybody thought that. But we did here at Juck on Bucks. It's right there in the intro.
I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship.
Oh, that's a year old. But I was kicking around what to do this weekend. There's not been a lot to talk about lately. And it dawned on me that I had not done a mock class. Somebody brought up, why don't you do a mock class a while back? And it's been on the list of things to do. And then I was thinking how fun mock classes used to be and what a futile task it is anymore. Like, if you do a mock class, it's essentially just throwing darts at this point in time in this era of recruiting. When a team like UCLA can come into the picture just out of the blue and say, hey, we're UCLA, the other team in Los Angeles, not only do we have the third best uniforms per the Juck on Buck rankings, at number 3, I've got a uniform that if you told me my team has to trade uniforms with one team, who would I pick? The UCLA Bruin All Blues. My gosh, man. But we got a fat stack of cash for you. And a guy who looked like he was going to be in the Ohio State class for a year and a half, all of a sudden Ohio State just fighting to get an official visit. Or a 3-star kid from Glenville gets his dream offer to Ohio State. There's only one other big school recruiting him, and he goes and visits and shuts down his recruitment before he even gets back to Ohio. Trying to predict where people are going to end up in this environment is a fool's errand. You set yourself up to look stupid, but I did it anyway. I did it anyway because the truth is, look, it's fun, but this era of recruiting, not a single one. Picture the guys you respect most in recruiting. Doesn't matter who it is. The guy you respect most. Nobody had JamiR Perez going to Florida. Nobody had Micah Smith going to UCLA. Like, these things just pop up out of nowhere. So trying to predict this stuff is ridiculous. But the truth is, all I can do is tell you the ones that are being slept on, the ones that are being overvalued. And we're going to do a mock class on the next show. But I thought it might be even cooler if before we did that, we put together what the perfect class would look like based on who's still on the board. What's the perfect combination and the perfect numbers? The absolute best class Ohio State can put together from now to signing day. So I did that first. Now, there is a caveat in the rules. For instance, Ohio State just offered the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, Lamar Brown. He won't be included on this list. I can't just go pick the best guys in the country who have an Ohio State offer. It has to be someone who Ohio State is legitimately in on, has an official visit, or is planning on scheduling an official visit. If they're committed elsewhere, they're immediately not allowed to be on the board. It can't be someone that we're hoping we're going to flip. That's not realistic. That may happen, but it's not realistic to put together in my dream class. They can't have released their top 5, and it doesn't include Ohio State. And I also can't stack guys that would never be in the same class together. And I'll explain what I mean as we move forward. But what I'm saying is, the class I put together is a realistic possibility. And to me, the perfect class in my eyes, this would be the perfect home run from now to signing day. And it's realistic. So you're going to have a different opinion based on how you value each of these individual players. But once I get the baseline of saying, all right, this is what the perfect class looks like, then I can go back when the class is over and say, all right, how close were they to nailing what I thought was the perfect class? I think for most of these positions and the guys that I put in the positions, you guys are going to agree with me for most of the guys. So let's go over the Juck on Bucks dream class of 2026 before we do that mock class, and we'll start with offense. And this is my bootleg graphic. So I worked really hard on this, and I know it's not great, but I'm proud of it because these things aren't very easy for those of us who are not very artistic. But I do find it kind of fun to work on these things. Anyway, offense is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. On our graphic, we've obviously got the guys who are in the red bubbles already committed. Not a whole lot left to do on offense here. You got to get your quarterback in. You got to get a running back or two, couple offensive linemen, and you may want to add a tight end. You've got your 4 wide receivers already. 5-star Chris Henry Jr., top 10 wide receiver Caden Dixon-Wyatt, both of them out of Mater Dei in California. We've got our local 4-star top 300 kid, Jaden Ricketts, out of Pataskala. And then we got a production machine, absolute burner, Brock Boyd from Texas, South Lake Carroll High School, a 4-star top 400 player. Now Brian Hartline free to help the rest of the staff, which I love. For our offensive linemen, so far, you've got Sam Greer out of Akron-Hoban, Max Riley out of Avon, and Tucker Smith out of Arizona. Tyler Bowen is the absolute dude. The fact that he was able to come in and get Sam Greer and Max Riley to sign on before they were even intending on making their decisions, when he was coming in working from a hole, was just so impressive. The momentum that he's had going is excellent, and I think that when we put together our dream class, it's totally realistic because of how good he's been. And then you got Keenan Bailey's tight end, Corbin Fordham, another what I think is an awesome evaluation, just like Brody Lennon and Nate Roberts were in the class of 2025. Corbin Fordham is going to rise up the board. Currently, he's a 3-star, but they were judging him when he was a 210-pound tight end. He's now up to 227. Which means when he comes to Ohio State, he'll probably be about 235. So we're talking about a dude who's going to be a whole lot bigger, and he runs routes like he's a slot receiver. So really excited for Corbin Fordham. But let's start with quarterback. So we'll go up to our gray box at quarterback, and we are very limited here. We're very limited here because there's only one quarterback with an official visit scheduled to Ohio State right now. And we can't have a guy that's committed elsewhere for the rules that I made for this. So 2 of my favorites, Jet Tamala out of Nebraska, who's committed to Iowa State, Cade Kaufman, who's committed to Michigan State. I can't pick them, which means it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple, and that is it's Luke Fahey, who we talked about the other day, out of Mission Viejo. He was Phillip Bell's quarterback in high school. Phillip Bell, freshman wide receiver at Ohio State, who's doing really well. My personal thought for this cycle was, obviously, you're trying to get a quarterback between Tavian St. Clair and Brady Edmonds, 2 absolute prototypes. And Ohio State had 2 directions they could go. They could go the first direction, which is a kid who has one really ridiculous skill, like he has an amazing arm, but he lacks accuracy, or maybe a crazy athlete, but just a decent arm. And then you could try to coach that kid up in the area that he lacked. And if you end up, getting that area that he lacks in up to good, then you've got a potentially great quarterback. Or you could go the other direction, and it appears the Bucs are going that direction. And that's a little more of a safe play, a kid who's more well-rounded, not the best size, not huge natural gifts, but just really good, competitive, smart, someone you could potentially envision being an Ohio State starter if he just remains on the trajectory that he's on, but nothing that's really going to wow you compared to Tavian St. Clair or Brady Edmonds, which admittedly a ridiculously high bar. And that guy is Luke Fahey. He's safe. He's a competitor. He's smart, not the biggest guy, not the most ridiculous arm, a state champion quarterback. Obviously chemistry with the wide receiver on the team helps, but you don't really have any other options here in this exercise. And to be honest, I really like Fahey. So not a single other quarterback who has an official visit scheduled, and nobody out there who is planning on scheduling one. So unless Ohio State goes calling to try to flip someone, we're kind of pigeonholed into Fahey here, which I'm not mad about at all. Good with it. The 2026 quarterback, not a quarterback who is in the plans to ever be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. though he can absolutely make it happen. But the plan is you're going from Julian Sayin, Tavian St. Clair, Brady Edmonds. All right, let's move to running back, and we'll start with the number. I think 1 running back is acceptable. I think 2 is the direction the Bucs are going to go, and my perfect class has 2. There are a couple guys on the board here that if they said to Ohio State, look, I'll come, but I want to be the only running back in the class, Ohio State would say, you got it. But I think 2 is the goal, and here's why. When we look forward to 2026, and we're talking about 3 down complete backs, Ohio State will have third-year James Peoples, second-year Bo Jackson, second-year Isaiah West. Then you got a couple of specialized backs in Turbo Rogers and Sam Williams-Dixon. Bringing in 1 back gives you 4 complete backs. But I think 2 changes in college football are really going to affect the numbers of running backs we're going to start to see college football teams carry. Number 1, I keep hearing people say, talking about recruits, asking them if they're okay with splitting carries and having, kind of a 1-2 punch. Like the 1 back bell cow thing is dead. It's been dead. And we see less and less teams doing it. Backs don't even want to do it anymore. They don't want to do it because they know that the NFL knocks them if they have too many carries. So always going to be a 2-back system for the most part moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future. In the scholarship limit going from 85 to 105. So if you're trying to build your perfect running back room where you used to want 5 backs, now it's going to be more like 6 or 7. You never want to be in the situation again that Ohio State had themselves in 2023, which just felt ridiculous. So in my dream class, starting with the number 1 running back in the country, Savion Hyder, who's cut his list down to Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee. The kid's just a little bit different than the a couple of guys that are just below him, and then there's a big gap after that. And he's my number 1. He's most people's number 1. Getting him in the class, obviously he's one of the guys that could say, I want to be the only back in the class. I don't think he will. But my next 2 on the list, I can't just load up with him because it's just not realistic to say Savion Hyder, Jay Lamar, or Savion Hyder and Derek Cooper are going to be in a class together. Also working off a budget, I just don't think you can justify paying 2 number 1 running backs, a position that you're only bringing in 2 guys, paying 2 number 1 type dudes. So Savion Hyder in my perfect class pairs with local Favor Aki. And I don't understand why he's not in the class yet, but it sure would be terrible if he was putzing about and one of these dudes like Savion Hyder or Derek Cooper said, I'm in, but I want to be the only guy in the class, and then he loses his spot. So I hope he commits soon. But I think we all believe that Favor Aki will be in this class. And obviously in our mock class, things will look a little different here, I think. Now, all right, let's move to offensive linemen. And this one, going to be pretty easy for me. Jackson Cantwell was the number 1 offensive lineman, committed to Miami. And right before he committed, 24/7 had updated their rankings. They released those rankings after he committed, and he was no longer the number 1 offensive lineman in the country via 247. He actually dropped down, I think, to their number 5 offensive lineman. But the new number 1 offensive lineman in the country was Felix Ojo. Felix Ojo out of Texas. And yes, Ojo is the proper pronunciation of this. I've seen a couple people say Felix Ojo, which is that's not it. They're looking at Felix and I think seeing the O-J-O and thinking that's Spanish. I asked him, he said it's Ojo, J-O-E. That's not how it's spelled, but it's Felix Ojo. He's brash. He talks about, look, I'm 17. I'm a year younger than these guys, and shows the list of the dudes that he's gone up against in Texas 6A ball, like Colin Simmons and just absolute studs. Colin Simmons, the freshman of the year at Texas. He wants to be the best. He talks like he's the best. He's a big tackle with an attitude who wants to be great. Absolutely. Give me Felix Ojo, Sam Greer opposite him, and Max Riley next to Sam. And then right next to Felix, give me the best guard in the cycle, and that's Darius Gray out of Virginia. Pound for pound, to me, one of the top 10 football players in the country, and he is a 5-star like Felix, who made his bones at the Ohio State camp last summer and really burst onto, all right, we need to take a look at this kid. I think he's really, really, really high. burst onto the scene at that camp by whooping on, at the time, the number one tackle in the country in 2026, Jakeem Stewart, who then went and reclassified to 2025 and went out to USC with a sweetheart of a deal for himself. So Darius Gray puts himself on the map, becomes a 5-star at Ohio State. And Ohio State, one of his 8 official visits, that's right, 8 official visits. I think Ohio State in the top half of those schools. He really likes Georgia. He had a really good visit at Georgia. He likes Auburn. I think he likes South Carolina a lot too. But the kid from Virginia, remember, Tyler Bowen was the Virginia Tech offensive coordinator. And I talked to Darius Gray the week after Tyler Bowen got here, and he said, Tyler Bowen was at my basketball game 2 weeks ago. So Tyler Bowen had a good relationship with Darius before he ever even got up here. And that's really when the recruitment started picking up heavy with Darius Gray. I think the Buckeyes are in it. I think it's realistic. I don't know if these two together will be on my mock class, but when it comes to the financial package, obviously these are two big money guys to pair Ojo with Darius Gray. Tyler Bowen is being given the resources to try to put together a really big class here. And it is somewhat realistic, if not fully realistic, to have these two in the same class. All right. In the third guy I've got here to make a total of 6 offensive linemen, I'd love to put an Ohio kid here, but we already got a couple. And I really need Sam Rosenberg out of Florida. Not too many people talking about Sam, but Sam keeps whittling away, and it looks like Ohio State keeps standing out on his board as a real contender here. 6'5", 285, 4-star, top 200 overall player. And I think he's a stud. I think he's the one that I would choose out of the rest of the guys on the board. Now, not totally done here yet, as I like Corbin Fordham, but while I would love to add Mark Bowman here, the best tight end of the country, and he still has technically Ohio State as one of his top 7, the Buckeyes are not in on this one. The kid is so deep in with Georgia and Texas, it's just not happening. He is he wears Brock Bowers' number in high school. He wants to be Brock Bowers. He loves Georgia. He loves how they use the tight end, and he knows that they can use the tight end and they can make him the next Brock Bowers, which I'm quite certain that's what they're selling him on. And he's just not realistic for the Buckeyes. But there is a guy that is, and that's Max Sutter. Max Sutter, a top 10 tight end in the country, 6'5", 230 pounds. Buckeyes are in it along with Alabama, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Illinois. It's absolutely doable. So in my dream scenario, we get him in next to Corbin Fordham. And then in the class of 25 and 26, you got Nate Roberts, Brody Lennon, Corbin Fordham, Max Sutter. And that is 4 dogs to carry on the elevation of the tight end room that Keenan Bailey has been bringing up and up and up as he goes on. All right, that is the offensive side of the ball. And we'll recap at the end here. Let's move over to defense. Okay, starting at linebacker, we've got local CJ Sana. At cornerback, we've got Jordan Thomas out of New Jersey, Jacob Weatherspoon out of Avon, and then at safety, Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell. Now, when we look at those 2 corners and those 2 safeties, my gosh, man, the makings of something special without a doubt. So let's go ahead and start with the safety room. This is obviously an easy one for all of us. You've got the best safety in the country, or the second best safety in the country, depending on where you look, sitting out there. Buckeyes in his Final Four. Buckeyes thought to be the leader, and that's Braylon Womack, of course. And if Braylon Womack gets in that class with Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell, I don't know that we'll have ever. I mean, we could probably go back and look through every single big-time class that has been assembled in the last, 20 years. But I would doubt that anybody has put together a class with the number 1, number 2, and a top 10 safety as a kicker. That's just ridiculous. I doubt Saban ever did it. Just one guy, and that's Matt Guerreri. And where did he rank in our assistant coaches power rankings, assistant coaches recruiting power rankings that we put together? Let's see. We had Hartline, Laurinaitis, Matt Guerreri was number 3. If depending on what Laurinaitis does this cycle and what Matt G puts together, I don't know. He may be making a push for that number 2 spot. All right, let's move to corner. For the dream class, we have got just one, and it's a pretty easy one because there aren't many options at corner left. Not many, except for the number 3 cornerback in the country, top 50 overall, and that's Justice Fitzpatrick. This kid is such a weapon that when I think about him, and I just picture this 25 crew, and let's say you got Braylon Womack in the class, and let's say you got Justice Fitzpatrick in the class. And now we're looking at the class of 25 and 26 together, kind of coming of age. And you're talking about a crew with, at safety, Blaine Bradford, Fahim Delane, Braylon Womack, Simeon Caldwell. At corner, Devin Sanchez, Justice Fitzpatrick, Jordan Thomas, Weatherspoon, in addition to a guy like Jordan Woods, a 6'4" freakazoid. Who knows what he turns out to be? The versatile Deshaun Stewart, Cody Haddad. This is starting to look, if you can make this happen with Fitzpatrick and Womack, like absolutely one of the best secondary units, collections of talent we've ever seen, maybe in college football. That's just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And man, would it be something. So for sure, easy. The cornerback and the safety, we all know what it is. We're all going to be on the same page there. Now let's move to linebacker. This one, another one where we don't really have any options here. Laurinaitis has got a really small board. The only people with official visits are the guys that we would all pick anyway. So you got Xavier Griffin, Tyler Atkinson, Sincere Johnson. You got those 3 dudes. You got 2 spots. Now, Tyler Atkinson is obviously a huge target that has loved the Buckeyes for a long time. And he's been the one that's gotten all the focus from all of us because Xavier Griffin was committed to USC. Since Xavier Griffin has decommitted, and in some part due to James Laurinaitis going to visit him along with Alabama before he decommitted, James Laurinaitis has been working him for a long time. James really wants him. Whether or not you want Tyler Atkinson or Xavier Griffin, it's personal preference. The guys are the number 1 or number 2 linebacker, and they flip depending on where you look. And they both have a very similar skill set and play a very similar style of game. Xavier Griffin took Ohio State off of his list, even though he liked Ohio State because of Jim Knowles' defense. He's now more intrigued with Matt Patricia. Can't wait to hear more about it. And seemingly has the Buckeyes in his top 4. They're one of his 4 official visits. So, Sincere Johnson, a different player, also a freakazoid athlete, but a bigger dude, an inside guy. So now you got Sincere and one of these 2. My personal preference is Tyler Atkinson. My brother, he'll take Xavier Griffin. No chance. I'm taking Tyler Atkinson because he's been my guy for so long. I'm riding my guy. I'm riding the guy that got me here. Now, Tyler Atkinson, Sincere Johnson, and the criminally underrated CJ Sonic, whose senior film is going to catapult him. This kid is incredibly fast, and I don't think people are giving him credit for it because of obvious reasons. He's a burner, and he's long, and he's physical. Cannot wait to see the senior season he puts together. Now, when we get to defensive line, I've been under the impression for a while now that we need an infusion of big-time talent on the defensive line. There's currently nobody committed. Now, the good news for Ohio State, they got themselves in really good position for quite a few of the top-tier guys in this class and quite a few of that just at the next level type of guys. You know Ohio State's going to get theirs in this class because now you've gotten yourself this far with a lot of guys having the Buckeyes in their Final 5 and Final 4. So they're going to get theirs at this point. There's no doubt about that. Question here is, who are the best? What would be the perfect collection of these guys? And I thought it was relatively easy, except for a couple of spots. But let's start with the numbers. At defensive tackle next year, you've got dudes, right? You've got Jason Moore, Caden McDonald, Will Smith, Edric Houston, Eric Mensah, Maxwell Roy, Trajan Odom, Jarquez Carter. That's 8 guys. At defensive end, Bo Atkinson, Logan George, Josh Mickens, Dominic Kirks, Zion Grady, Epi Satanile, Kenyatta can return. That's 7 guys. We don't know what Kenyatta's going to do. We don't know what Caden McDonald's going to do. He could potentially leave with a great season. But you've got numbers. But I think Ohio State is still going to go after a relatively big defensive line class because, like me, I think the brass feels they need an infusion of talent. And if that leads to some of the other guys potentially filtering out in the transfer portal, that sucks. But, this is Ohio State, man. One of those defensive linemen, when I put together my list of the top 12 most wanted guys, I had 5 defensive linemen, and one of them was JamiR Perez, because you need a big nose tackle in this class. You really want it. I've wanted it for a long time. The type of guys that Bama and Georgia always seems to get. Having one homegrown here in Ohio looked like, okay, he's not a wonderful talent, but give me that guy, give me that body type, and let's see what Ohio State's strength and conditioning can do with him. So, of course, he's going to Florida, and that really, takes a ding on this class to me. But I'm going to go with, I need 6 dudes in this class, 6 defensive linemen, because one of them is a guy that I probably otherwise would not have taken, and I am going to take Cam Brickle. Right now, you've got 2 guys on the board for you that are 300-pounders, and it's Cam Brickle, it's Preston Carey. Preston Carey, I really like from ING, weight room junkie, but just reviewing this last night, watching those 2 again, back to back, Cam Brickle just got a little bit of extra juice to him, a little bit of extra twitch. I just need that from him. So Cam Brickle is my guy. Obviously, the lowest rated guy that's going to be on here. He's a 3-star kid. I don't care about that. I care about his body type, and I care about what he's bringing here. And I think it's a lot to a class where I feel like you need a 300-pounder on the roster coming in as a freshman, a kid who will get bigger and stronger. So definitely going to start with Cam Brickle. Now, I've got room for 2 more defensive tackles, and this is easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Deuce Gerald's, if you've been watching me for any amount of time, this kid's been like my favorite player in this class for over a year. I've been talking about him forever. Not only a great player, but he's all Buckeye. His dad played at Ole Miss. He's got fantastic eyebrows. He's a little shorter, doesn't have the longer arms, but he's a mauler. Huge, physical, muscular kid. I've shown you several times him going up against 5-star offensive linemen in camps and making them look silly. Hank, light work. Micah DeBose again. Just a beast, man. They can't contain him. They can't control him. Michael Carroll, that's a 5-star offensive lineman going to Bama. If he was a couple inches taller, he'd be the number 1 defensive tackle in the country. I'm okay that he's not. I'm not bringing him on to the Browns roster to play in the NFL. He's coming to play in college. Second, I think that a lot of people will pick Aiden Harris here. Aiden Harris, who at one point was the top 1 or 2 defensive tackle in the country. And that, to me, was before P.J. Dean made it clear that he was going to play defense. P.J. Dean, a 2-way player who Georgia kind of put in his head, why don't you play defense in college? We'd like to see you play defense. He lost some more weight. His defensive tape is pretty silly. And quite honestly, it's better than Aiden Harris's to me. So Aiden Harris, who wasn't really an Ohio State option at this point anymore, despite him saying that he is planning on taking an official visit to Ohio State, technically he could have made the list. But I don't think it's a realistic possibility. And I would take P.J. Dean over him. And I will. So there's my tackles. I've got Cam Brickle, P.J. Dean, Deuce Geralds. Now, this was really difficult for me because I also wanted to add Damari Simeon in there instead of Cam Brickle. Damari Simeon out of New Jersey, a baller I really like. And I think him with Deuce Geralds and P.J. Dean. Well, number 1, you're talking about 3 of the top 10 tackles in the country. Adding those 3, and that alone is like, wow, that is a talent infusion. But I just feel like I need Cam Brickle. I need that 300-pounder. Maybe this is just in my head. Maybe I'm just angry from losing Perez. And maybe that would be a silly way to go. But I just feel like I want one of those dudes on the roster. So that is how I finish at tackle. Let's get to edge. We've got 3 guys. Each one of them has Ohio State in their final 4 or 5. All 3 of them top 10 edge rushers in the country. If I had just one pick, my number one guy would be Carter Meadows at 6'6.5", 225 pounds. He is long. He's a basketball star. He's fast. He's aggressive. He is the modern pass rush specialist. Perfect frame. And he's down to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, South Carolina. A Midwest recruitment, a kid out of Washington, D.C., an absolute stud, a must win, in my opinion. You got to win. My second pick, Luke Waffle out of New Jersey. You've got an excuse here. 6'5.5", 245. The kid is Jack Sawyer's size. Jack Sawyer not coming out of high school. Jack Sawyer right now in the NFL, Jack Sawyer. That is what size Luke Waffle is right now. Equally as dominant, strong side defensive end, great pass rusher as well. Top 10 edge. He's down to Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, and USC. His brother is at Penn State. If you lose to Penn State, I'm not going to be you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just tough to beat something like that. I would understand that. You cannot lose Carter Meadows to Penn State or Michigan. You just can't. You can't give them a 5-star and lose a 5-star all in one. That's a double whammy. My third choice, this one was tough for me. This one was really tough. There were plenty of guys who fit the bill here. There were 3 other guys that were in consideration for my third. I'm taking Jake Krull. Now, Jake is excellent. Here's my concern. Jake is super twitchy, great burst. For starters, he's a little undersized at 6'2.5", 220. Whatever, I can get past that. The scarier thing to me is Jake is so good technically. He beats people with all these sweet moves, and it's fun to watch. But it's not all that. He's got the burst too. He's got the get off too. He's got the aggressiveness as well. Now you might say, what is the problem with having a guy who's got all these moves? Nothing. He's great technically. The issue is when you're looking at it, 2 prospects, and one of them is beating everybody with these great moves, and the other one is beating everybody with just raw ability. Well, the guy with raw ability who's beating everyone, he has a higher ceiling now to me because I can now teach him those moves and make him even that much better. If I'm looking at the guy who's beating everybody with all the sweet moves, well, he already knows the moves. How much more can I elevate his play? And in some cases, that might make you not choose Jake in this situation. But to me, I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Jake. After rewatching some stuff, I think that he is the dude I would pick. So that's my third. I almost put Kari Wilder in here. I almost put Jackson Ford in here. Either of them would have been a great alternative. The only one that I don't have in consideration here for the dream class that the Buckeyes are in on, who's going to have an official, who's a top-rated guy, is Landon Barnes out of Duncanville. Really liked the kid, liked the player, but saw something that really bothered me in his film yesterday. And he knocked him out of there for me. So, all right, let's wrap up our dream class of 2026. At quarterback, we've got Luke Fahey out of Mission Viejo in California. At running back, we've got Savion Hyder out of Virginia. Favor Aki out of Ohio. At wide receiver, we've got Chris Henry Jr., 5-star. Caden Dixon-Wyatt, his teammate at Mater Dei. We've got Jaden Ricketts out of Pataskala, Ohio. Brock Boyd out of South Lake Carroll. On the offensive line, we've got Sam Greer out of Akron Hoban High School. Max Riley out of Avon. Tucker Smith out of Arizona. Felix Ojo out of Texas. Darius Gray out of Virginia. Sam Rosenborough out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And at tight end, we've got Corbin Fordham out of the Bulls School in Jacksonville, Florida, and Max Sutter out of Illinois. On the defensive side of the ball, at defensive tackle, we've got Deuce Geralds out of Georgia, PJ Dean out of North Carolina, Cam Brickle out of Pennsylvania, Carter Meadows out of DC, Luke Waffle out of New Jersey, Jake Krull out of IMG in Florida. At linebacker, we've got CJ Sana out of Olentangy High School in Ohio, Tyler Atkinson out of Georgia, Sincere Johnson out of Glenville. Jordan Thomas out of New Jersey up at cornerback. Jacob Weatherspoon out of Avon. Justice Fitzpatrick out of St. Thomas Aquinas. At safety, we've got Blaine Bradford out of Louisiana. Simeon Caldwell, the Bulls School in Jacksonville, teammates with Corbin Fordham. And Braylon Womack out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And that is our dream class. How many 5 stars do we have here? Well, we've got Sabian Hyder, that's 1. Chris Henry Jr. is 2. Felix Ojo is 3. Darius Gray is 4. That's 4 5 stars on offense. And on defense, we've got Carter Meadows is 1. Tyler Atkinson is 2. Blaine Bradford is 3. Braylon Womack is 4. So we're talking 8 5 stars in the class. That breaks the record of 7 set in 2021. And we are pushing for the number 1 class. I mean, that better get the number 1 class. That better get it done. If not, I give up. We're never going to get it. All right, friends. Hope you enjoyed our little exercise today. We will now do the mock class so we can see, all right, how's it stack up to the perfect class? Let me know where you disagreed. Let me know where you agreed. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate those of you who have who are members of families who have given the ultimate sacrifice for all of us, and appreciate you all so much on Memorial Day, and thinking of all of you. So thank you so much, guys. Talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out. Pardon the interruption, but I need your help. If you're enjoying today's show, please hit that like button. If you like the channel, please consider subscribing to Juck on Bucks. Just makes it easier for you to find it. Doesn't cost you a thing. If you're on Apple Podcasts, I really could use some more reviews over there. And in that comment section, I rely on it for a ton. Not only do your comments help the show grow, but I learn where the fan base stands on particular issues, good ideas for shows. I genuinely enjoy interacting with other Buckeyes and other college football fans, unless they're idiots. So please feel free to leave those comments. Sometimes I put some good ones on at the end of the show, or I cook you for ridiculous ones. Either way, all are welcome. Thanks, guys.